During the early 2000s, Walt Disney Feature Animation was looking for the next formula that would spark box office magic. Unfortunately, movies like Fantasia 2000, Dinosaur, The Emperor's New Groove, and Atlantis: The Lost Empire just didn't work. And even though Lilo and Stitch seemed to be a beacon of hope, Disney still had yet to find the formula that worked best. After the success of Lilo and Stitch, Disney was looking to capitalize on their shift upward with a new animated film that featured hand-drawn animated characters with computer-generated backgrounds, Treasure Planet. It was originated by John Musker and Ron Clements, who originally pitched the idea of doing Treasure Island in space back when they originally pitched The Little Mermaid. The idea would be dropped, but Musker and Clements insisted to make the film after the success they had with The Little Mermaid and Aladdin. They went to Roy E. Disney after Jeffrey Katzenberg told them the movie would never work, and Roy greenlit the film following their success with Hercules. Over 1,000 animators were put on the production, and Clements and Musker wanted the ability to move the camera in all directions, just as you would with a live-action film. So, to do this, animators used Deep Canvas, the program that was created for Tarzan, and created the backgrounds in full 360 degrees before anything else was ever animated. And to merge the story's original Treasure Island motif with sci-fi elements, the two directors created a new rule. The 70-30 rule required the animation team to stick to the classic story 70% of the time, adding in science fiction only 30% of the time. This allowed the story to still feel familiar, even in its new space theme. The goal was to attract younger viewers with the fast-paced sci-fi action, while appealing to an older audience with the classic tale of Jim Hawkins. Adding to the idea of keeping the film from being too sci-fi, sound designer Dane Davis purchased old mechanical items at thrift and antique stores, steering away from creating computer-generated sounds. The studio composer James Newton Howard would also add a more classical score harkening back to Star Wars, and the lack of space sounds kept the film grounded. John Resnick, lead singer of the Goo Goo Dolls, was also brought in to write songs for the soundtrack, following his success with writing the song Iris for the City of Angels soundtrack. With a budget soaring up to $140 million, Disney was banking on Clements and Musker to really deliver just as they had with The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, and Hercules. But audiences just weren't interested. The film was released in both regular and IMAX theaters in November of 2002, with critics boasting the technical achievement, but the movie had stiff competition going up against Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, the James Bond film Die Another Day, and Disney's own The Santa Claus 2. With a year that had also seen Ice Age, Lilo and Stitch, and Spirited Away, Treasure Planet just wasn't seen as a top animated film in that year. Treasure Planet would only end up making $109 million at the box office, being the first film since The Black Cauldron back in 1985 to lose money. It was a major blow considering how Clements and Musker demanded to do the project, and Disney had total faith in their ability to tell this story. They would eventually go on to make another major hit movie as co-directors, but until then, Disney would still try finding its way with its next feature, 2003's Brother Bear. After the success of The Lion King, Michael Eisner wanted to see more animal films and requested that a film be based in North America. Veteran animator Aaron Blaise stepped up to take on the idea, along with Robert Walker as his co-director. After trips to Alaska, Yellowstone, and several other national parks, animators got to work on a more naturalistic-looking film. To go off of the Shakespearean success of The Lion King, writers originally looked at another Shakespeare play, King Lear. But the story would eventually morph into the idea it became, with Kenai learning a lesson and Coda adding innocence and charm to what could otherwise become a dark and tragic story. And like The Lion King, the animation style would rely more on hand-drawn animation with minimal computer input. And after the success of Tarzan, Phil Collins was tapped once again to write the soundtrack for Brother Bear, and shared singing duties with Tina Turner. To capitalize on the DVD platinum release of The Lion King, Brother Bear was moved up in production and scheduled for its 2003 release so that a trailer would accompany The Lion King in its DVD release. Made for a third of the price as Treasure Planet and banking on its association with the success of former films, Brother Bear would debut in November of 2003, grossing $250 million. It was a success at the box office. Critics, however, weren't excited about the film, that was relying on old tropes rather than trying to find something new and unique in animation, like how Finding Nemo had done earlier that year. The movie at least did one thing, and that was bring in the financial backing to explore new ways to make Disney animation feel fresh. But before they could do that, they would still need to suffer another big loss. Home on the Range was a concept dreamt up by Pocahontas writer and director Mike Gabriel, and greenlit by then animation studio president Peter Schneider. He originally saw the story as a Western version of Rudyard Kipling's Captains Courageous. But his 40-page script for the story wouldn't be the last. By 2000, Mike Gabriel and several others were removed from the film due to ongoing story problems, and Will Finn and John Sanford would take over the film that was originally titled Sweating Bullets. To help the production, Disney would bring back veteran songwriter and composer Alan Menken to add some musical magic. The end film would look more like what Disney called a Charlie's Angels movie, but with cows. The movie was hand-drawn and would be the last major Disney feature to use the CAPS computer system that had originally been used to plus the Disney films of the Renaissance. Changing its name from Sweating Bullets to Home on the Range, Disney released the film in April of 2004 to both lackluster reviews and a lackluster box office. Critics cited that Home on the Range didn't have the ageless appeal typically associated with a Disney movie, but was instead geared just for children. The attitude translated over to the box office, where people were reaffirmed that Disney films were just for kids and not for them. Audiences were more interested in what Pixar was doing, as they had an amazing run of films since Toy Story, leading all the way up to that year's The Incredibles, which made $633 million at the box office, while Home on the Range made only $103 million, making less money than its budget, and a major change would need to happen. And it did, with Chicken Little. In 2001, Emperor's New Groove director Mark Dindal proposed a version of Chicken Little to Michael Eisner, who liked it enough to give it the go-ahead. David Stainton, who was promoted to the president of Disney Animation, thought the story needed more and went through 2.5 years of rewrites. The movie was finally set with the story of Chicken Little trying to save his town from aliens. And just a quick side note, David Stainton was only president of Disney Animation from 2003 to 2006, and was a key figure for the company. He would be the one to close down all of Disney's animation studios outside of Burbank, including the studio in Paris and in Florida, which would stop the bleeding of finances that happened during the post-Renaissance. But the aftershock from this decision would also impact the Disney Hollywood Studios theme park and the entire animation world altogether, as many animators sought out new jobs at different companies. Another major decision that was made by David Stainton for Chicken Little was the need to move Disney's animators into the computer-generated world. Half of the traditional animation staff at Burbank were trained for 18 grueling months in the CGI style of animation with a program named Maya. Another computer program that was created for this film and needed to be learned was XGen, which gave the characters fur and feathers and other textures. Part of the reason for Disney to train their team to make CGI animated films was due to the deal that they had with Pixar. Since Toy Story, Disney was Pixar's distributor, but Pixar's 10-year contract would expire when Cars was released the following year. That meant that Pixar would have enough leverage to renegotiate a good deal or to completely move away from Disney altogether. The Disney team wanted to make sure that they could compete with DreamWorks or Pixar if that were the case, and Chicken Little would have to be their answer to the success of films like Shrek, Madagascar, Toy Story, Finding Nemo, and Monsters, Inc. Chicken Little would make its way to the theaters in November of 2005 and would be Disney's biggest hit since Dinosaur, making $314 million at the box office. However, critics panned the film as simply kids' fare, something their last film had also been accused of. Disney had made money, but a bigger problem was public image. Too many people saw Pixar as an animation studio that made films for both children and adults, while Disney was only making kids' movies. When it came time to renegotiate with Pixar, Michael Eisner felt that Disney could make their own CGI films based on the box office success of Chicken Little, and could even start their own separate animation studio, Circle 7, to make sequels to the films originally created by Pixar, as their distribution deal also saw Disney owning the rights to those characters. But Michael Eisner, as well as President David Staten, wouldn't be around much longer. Meet the Robinsons was put into production in 2004. Unlike Chicken Little, Meet the Robinsons didn't need to go through tons of testing and changes, as the animation team was now familiar with the CGI style, and the original story was fleshed out much quicker. But the film would see major changes that would parallel with the company. In mid-2005, Michael Eisner was asked to step down from his position as the head of the Disney enterprise, and Disney's COO Bob Iger would move up and take his place. As part of the change in management, Iger wanted Pixar back in the fold, and he would purchase Pixar for $7.4 billion, bringing in Pixar's Ed Catmull and John Lasseter to be the Disney animation team's new president and chief creative officer. The change in leadership would lead to Meet the Robinsons being looked at from new angles, and John Lasseter essentially asked for over half of the film to be completely redone. The villain was made to be scarier, a new sidekick was added, and that whole dinosaur chase scene was also added in. Overall, the movie barely resembled what they had originally started with, and the transition in power at the Disney company would cause Meet the Robinsons to feel a little bit like a forgotten stepchild. What was supposed to be a simple and easy movie to make ended up costing the studio around $150 million, and the movie would only make $169 million at the box office. It didn't lose money like Treasure Planet, but it wasn't the follow-up box office to Chicken Little like they needed. On the critical side, Meet the Robinsons was met with mixed reviews, with many still believing that Disney was only creating movies for kids, something that John Lasseter was looking to change. Now under new leadership, the Disney animation team had to make the transition to be taken more seriously. John Lasseter would bring a different feeling to Disney, standing up for what he believed would work, at first clashing with the Disney animation team, but he would eventually lead that team out of its slump and into a new revival. Thanks for watching, and if you love this video, make sure to subscribe to our channel and give a thumbs up. If you haven't checked out the rest of our Disney Film Eras videos, dating all the way back to Snow White, we have an entire playlist looking at all of those films' history. Check out the playlist in the description down below, or click on the card at the end of this video. And until next time, my friends, keep on moving, people.